Take a deep breath right now. The cells in your body are keeping you alive solely because of one man. A genius who saved 4 billion people from starving to death. But history books hide a terrifying secret. This exact same savior became the father of chemical warfare. And the invention he created to feed the world was later used in pitch-black concrete rooms to exterminate his own blood relatives. This is the mind-bending true story of Fritz Haber. And by the end of this video, everything you believe about good and evil will be completely destroyed. The year is 1900. The world is standing on the edge of a massive, terrifying tragedy. The global population is exploding, but the dirt is dead. The earth has lost all its nutrients. Crops are withering and dying. The greatest scientists of the time sounded the alarm. If a solution isn't found immediately, in just a few years, all of humanity will be wiped out by mass starvation. Humanity's time was running out. With every ticking second, death crept closer. We needed a miracle. And then came Fritz Haber. He was a madman of his craft, an unbelievably brilliant German chemist. He looked up at the sky and realized a terrifying truth. 78% of the air around us is made of nitrogen. Nitrogen is the exact saving fertilizer the soil desperately needs to grow crops. But it was locked up in the sky, trapped as a gas. If he could somehow pull that nitrogen down from the sky and push it into the dirt, humanity would be fed forever. Every top scientist in the world said this defied the laws of physics, that it was absolutely impossible. But Haber didn't care about the word impossible. He locked himself inside his laboratory. He used such terrifying pressure and extreme heat in his experiments that the lab could have exploded and blown him to pieces at any second. And after years of relentless, insane obsession, he did it. He extracted nitrogen from the air. He literally created bread from thin air. Almost overnight, the earth turned green again. Wheat and corn grew taller than ever before. Bellies were full. The phantom of mass starvation was destroyed. Even right now, as you sit and breathe, exactly half of the nitrogen in your body, in your muscles, and in your blood exists solely because of his invention. He won the Nobel Prize. He was worshipped. He was a hero. The absolute savior of mankind. But heroes are often just monsters waiting for the right war. And his war was just beginning. World War I begins. Millions of men were buried alive in the bloody mud of the trenches. The German army was stuck in a dead end, losing thousands of men every single day. Haber took off his white laboratory coat. He put on a sharp, dark military uniform. He was a fierce patriot, insanely obsessed with proving his loyalty to Germany. He walked up to the military generals and gave a cold smile. "I have a new toy," he said, "a weapon that will clear the trenches and win the war in a matter of weeks." April 22, 1915, Ypres, Belgium. The battlefield was locked in dead silence. Haber stood on the front lines, waiting for the wind to change direction. When the wind blew toward the enemy, the French and Canadian trenches, Haber gave the terrifying order. His men opened the valves on 6,000 heavy steel cylinders. A heavy, thick, sickly yellow-green chlorine gas hissed out of the tanks. It hugged the ground, advancing across the cratered battlefield like a living, crawling predator. The enemy soldiers in the trenches didn't know what it was. They thought it was just smoke. They didn't run. They gripped their rifles and waited in their spots. Then, the green cloud poured down into the trenches, and hell opened its doors. Chlorine gas doesn't just choke you. When you breathe it in, the gas violently reacts with the moisture in your eyes, your throat, and your lungs. It instantly turns into hydrochloric acid. The soldiers were literally melting alive from the inside out. Men dropped their weapons. They grabbed their throats, tearing at their own skin. They collapsed into the dirt, coughing up blood and yellow foam. They were drowning on dry land, their lungs completely filling with their own bloody fluids. The bleach-like smell of chlorine filled the air, mixing with the horrific, animalistic screams of men burning alive from the inside. In a single hour, over 5,000 soldiers died in unimaginable agony. And Fritz Haber? He watched this entire massacre from a safe distance. He didn't blink. He didn't turn his face away in horror. He calmly took out his notebook and started taking notes. He was calculating the gas's efficiency in killing humans. He was proud of his gruesome masterpiece. But he didn't know what a terrifying tragedy he was causing in his own home. His wife, Clara Immerwahr, was also a genius scientist. She found out what her husband had done on the battlefield. Her soul shattered. She knew exactly the suffering behind this gas. She called his work a disgusting perversion of science. She begged Haber to stop the killing, but Haber laughed at her. He accused his wife of treason, and that exact same day, he threw a lavish party at his house to celebrate his horrific massacre. That night, while Haber was drinking and celebrating his promotion to captain, Clara quietly walked out into the dark, cold garden. She could no longer live with her husband's blood-soaked hands. She took his heavy military pistol, she pressed it to her chest, and shot herself in the heart. Their 13-year-old son, Herman, heard the gunshot. He ran out into the dark garden and found his mother lying in a pool of blood on the dirt. What did Haber do? Did he stop the party? Did he fall to his knees and cry? Did the guilt break him? No. The very next morning, leaving his traumatized 13-year-old son completely alone for his mother's funeral, Fritz Haber packed his bags, and he headed straight to the Russian front to launch the next gas attack. The savior of humanity was completely dead. Now, only the monster lived. But history has an incredibly dark, incredibly cruel sense of humor, and it was yet to come. The punishment he would receive for his actions turned out to be more terrifying than his worst nightmares. Years passed. The war ended in defeat for Germany. Haber returned to his laboratory. He created a new, powerful pesticide gas designed to kill insects and rats in grain silos. He named it Zyklon A. He thought he was helping agriculture once again. Adolf Hitler and the Nazis took absolute control over Germany. Fritz Haber was a proud German. He had dedicated his genius mind, his health, and his wife's life to the German Empire. He considered himself untouchable. But to the Nazis, his Nobel Prize was worthless. His bloody military service meant nothing. Why? Because Fritz Haber was born Jewish. The man who gave Germany its greatest weapon was stripped of all his titles, humiliated, and chased out of his own homeland like a dog. He wandered across Europe and died in absolute isolation in Switzerland in 1934. But his nightmare didn't end with his death. The Nazis took his pesticide, Zyklon A. They changed the formula. They removed the warning smell that urged people to run away. They turned it into a perfect, silent killer for humans. And they changed its name, Zyklon B. World War II, the Holocaust, the pitch-black, freezing concrete gas chambers of Auschwitz. Millions of innocent people were stripped naked and locked inside those rooms. They were told they were simply going in for a shower. A deafening, horrific silence. And suddenly, falling from the ceiling like rain, were green crystals, the gas that choked the life out of millions in a matter of minutes. This was Zyklon B, the direct, bloody descendant of Fritz Haber's invention. And here's the most terrifying irony in world history, the darkest justice. Among the millions who were shoved into those concrete rooms, suffocating as Zyklon B filled their lungs, who was there? Fritz Haber's own nieces and nephews, his own blood relatives. The genius who created bread from the sky to save 4 billion people from starving had unknowingly handed the devil the exact horrific weapon used to exterminate his own family. Look at your hands right now. Take a deep breath. Exactly half of the nitrogen keeping your body alive at this very moment exists because of Fritz Haber. You are alive because of him. But millions of people died in unimaginable, burning, suffocating agony because of him too. So who is he? Is he the savior who fed the earth, or the monster who built the factory of death? If you save 1 billion lives, does that wash the blood of millions of murders off your hands? Are we defined by our greatest good or our darkest evil? Which side of the scale weighs heavier? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to hear more of this brutal, unpainted history they don't teach you in school, hit the subscribe button, because the truth is always more terrifying than fiction.